War. War never changes. When a conflict arises, there is always one answer that is always there, no matter how diplomatic or peaceful one will be, and that answer is war. In the early 1900s, this answer was used in response to the assassination of the Archduke Duke Ferdinand of Austria and his wife. They were killed by a Serbian nationalist by the name of WW1, who was in league with a terrorist group of Serbia by the name of the Black Hand. And soon after this, Austria declared war on Serbia and had allies to back them up. Due to alliances and treaties with other countries, this soon involved many countries in Europe and around the world, including the Ottoman Empire, Austria-Hungary, Germany, and soon to be Bulgaria on the Central Powers, while list Russia, France, eventually Great Britain, and late in the war, the US on the Allies. This would be pretty much set in stone until the very end of the war. So what if Europe is in another war? They've been doing this for the ages, as far as time has been created. But new technologies have been introduced to all of these countries. From new and improved rifles to automatic firing, to the biplanes that fly over and drop bombs on the trenches, and also of the gas that suffocates you and tears you up from the inside, and even the new heavy artillery that pound you into the ground and rip you to shreds. War has taken a new face, and it's very ugly. In the background, you will see gameplay of a game called Verdun, a realistic World War I shooter that bases itself on trench warfare and the horrors and deadly combat of it. Trench warfare was introduced when the two armies, mainly Germany and France, were caught in a stalemate and dug down to keep themselves safe from the enemy fire. They dug about usually 8 to 6 feet and made themselves home there in the little ditches that ran miles wide, approximately 230 miles across the borders. The land in between them was known as no man's land, where artillery shells, bullets, dead bodies, mud poles, ditches, foxholes were all laid everywhere in this barren wasteland. If you dared to go out, you were either shot on sight or wounded, which at this time in history guaranteed you most certain death. Life conditions in the trenches were not all that great at all, despite being fed and close to home. When it rained, the trenches would fill up because there was barely any irrigation for it to drain out the rain, and the trenches would become flooded, and they would have to reside up on top of the pillars in order to seek safety from the water to avoid hypothermia and other diseases. When a person died in the trenches, they usually throw their bodies overhead or just leave them there, for they do not have the time nor risk in order to properly bury them or to transport them out of the trench. This is because of the whole fact that if you get out of your trench, you got a whole lot of men staring down at you, shoot down and kill you. And this is also how disease went rampant from the decaying bodies, and also lowered morale of the soldiers, because seeing your dead friend's rotten body is not really a great sight to see. But besides shooting at each other and bombings and artillery, one of the main causes of death was just infection in itself. Back at this time, antibiotics and whatnot are not really invented per se, or really used. More on the side of not invented. And from getting shot and having your leg blown off to even just a little scratch was potentially enough to end your life from sickness. And this caused a lot of deaths, and in fact I bet you a lot of the death tolls were alone just because of this factor. One of the tactics that was used to conceal yourself or to charge the enemy was deploying smoke. Of course, it's in what it's itself. You deploy smoke, they can't see you, you can't see them, potentially catch the enemy off guard from a charge, or it can also conceal yourself from their fire, and they can be wasting ammo, potentially shooting at nothing. This actually proved to be a great tactic that we still use today. Even back then, like after the World War I, it was used in World War II, the Vietnam, Iraqi War, and possibly even what we're going to have with Syria. As seen by the horse and the gameplay in the background, casualties were a big number in this war. According to a little lookup, 41 million people had casualties in the war, and 18 million were deaths. 7 million of those deaths were civilians, and 10 million were their military personnel. And I believe there was not a war, or no, there was not a major battle that had less than 100,000, and the most had 1,000,000. Of the many ways and weapons to take out a trench, one of the most scariest was of the gases and the flamethrowers. Troops would be armed with a canister of gasoline or whatnot, and they would go up to a trench and flame down anyone inside that trench. And this, although brutal, was very effective. And the gassings, of course, it's in its name. It puts down toxic gas, and it kills you. It just rips you up on the inside, fills your lungs, make you bleed, and it was terrible. War is inevitable, but we should still strive to find diplomatic ways to solve our problems and to make sure the atrocities of World War I will never happen again.